Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a channeled message that was given to me today, and it is a diagram of the energetic magnetics. So, we're going to dive into what that is. So I titled it Energetic Magnetics because it is showing us the body, the mind, the spirit, and the energetics of, we call our spherical, or we say the spiral energy. Okay. That is our impact, that is our momentum, that is our velocity, and that's what creates this spiritual power. So when we talk about being very energetically magnetic, we think of people such as Tony Robbins. We have all kinds of people throughout this planet that have that energetic magnetism. They're very impactful. They have this penetration that is able to almost rewrite a person's energetic state instantly. So, for example, they have the ability to penetrate into somebody's subconscious mind in a certain way that reorganizes their subconscious mind in that moment. So that's our spiritual power. That is our energetic magnetism, where we are able to rewrite our destiny. We are able to rewrite our fate. We are able to penetrate others in a way that rewrites their destiny or their fate, or propels them like a propulsion. We can propel them into a potential. Okay, it's not necessarily we're not rewriting people's karmas and dharmas and their paths. That is very much their own, but we create a propulsion through our own embodiment. So we're going to dive into the energetic magnetism of our presence. So when we talk about a person who has this very extraordinary presence, there's just something very interesting about their presence, as though we're drawn into it. Like many gurus or yogis or saints, we're just drawn into them. We're lured into them. There's a reason for that. We as energetic beings, we follow the masterful energy. So when we sense that in each other, or when we sense that in, even we could say, Mother Mary or Jesus Christ, we're drawn into that, because we all know we came here to master the incarnation. To master the incarnation, and applying mastery is a velocity. It is an ability to penetrate our challenges, our struggles, our adversity in a way where we gain more energy from it, not less. That's what we talk about energetic magnetism, is you're gaining energy from it. Okay, and you're dispersing that energy. You're circulating that energy throughout all of your total system, so that you can create what we call this this golden egg around you. This golden egg around you. And when we think of this golden egg around you, we're thinking of the master. We're thinking of the masterful incarnation. So that spiritual power that we obtain in this particular lifetime, or in many lifetimes, it becomes our source of abundance. It becomes our source of creativity, and it becomes our source of eternity, meaning we are able to access the talents and gifts that are basically given to us when we bless ourselves. When we bless ourselves, we're given talents and gifts from the source of that masterful incarnation, and that becomes our, you can say, our resolution, becomes our potential, our newfound potential, our renewal of potential. So we're going to look at this. We're going to start at the bottom. We're going to work our way up. So imagine that there's a person standing here. So the person, this represents the lower half of the person, and this represents the upper half. So you see the eye, that represents, we could say, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and this represents the reproductive. Okay, and then around is the auric field. So in the center we have the heart, the heart. So looking down below, here we have the entryway, the word seating. The entryway is the opening of the vagina. Okay. And for a male, there is a point, we could say, between the rectum and we could say below the testicles, where there's a point when we are seated in hero pose or celibate pose with our knees together and we're seated between our legs, that our innocence touches the floor, which is the entryway. The entryway to the vagina, the entryway that a man has, the point between the rectum and below the testicles. So, this is our seating. So when we think of seating, words such as originality, our original essence. So the seed is the essence. And the sprout and the blooming represents the essence reaching potential, realizing itself. So the seed realizes itself when it sprouts. Okay. It receives sunlight, it receives rain, it receives nourishment from the soil, and through that nourishment, the sunlight, the water, it realizes its potential and grows deeper and more fuller into its most authentic self, becoming beautiful, becoming graceful, becoming its most magnetic self. A flower in its full bloom is very intriguing, extraordinary, pleasant, potent. So the seeding represents our essence. So that's the entryway to the vagina, and the entryway, we know that point for the male as well. So we see a tear-shaped and we see an inner circle. The tear-shaped represents the childhood. Okay, and that inner seed represents the inner child. So the inner child is our uninflicted innocence. It is union, perfect union with creation, joy, authenticity. So when we think of our inner child, we think of our most joyful and authentic self. We could call it untouched. It's untouched by, we could say, the elements of time or conditioning or beliefs or culture, ideologies, such things that basically are surrounding the inner child, the childhood. Okay? But the inner child is the self that is untouched. Okay? It is uninflicted. It's just in this pure state of union with creation, like children. They are completely involved, aware, and attentive of everything around them. They're completely aware of the essence of themselves and of each other. We call it deep compassion. We call it unconditional love, acceptance, forgiveness. These children possess this quite naturally because they're very connected to this uninflicted state, which is their seed. Their seed that is in the soil, not yet sprouted, not yet blooming, but it is there in the soil, soaking up the nourishment from, we could say, the childhood. So we also can see the soil. The childhood is what composts the seed. So a lot of times the childhood is what creates the self-worth for the inner child. So with their seeding, it very much the entryway has to do with our self-worth. So as a woman and a man, the way we treat our vagina and our penis, it shows our self-worth. So if we are pretty much having all kind of a woman, if our entryway is beat up, okay, by all of the penetrational sex, pounding, sex that is not very graceful or reverent or loving, that creates low self-worth. So the self-worth very much has to do with the entryway of the vagina, and as well as for the man too. So when a man is participating in sex that's not soulful or heartfelt or connecting to the union of creation, okay, what happens is the self-worth, it lowers. The inner child gets inflicted. Okay, it gets inflicted. And when our inner child gets inflicted, we start to lose our joy. We start to lose that authenticity about ourselves. And though it becomes unnatural for us to be joyful or authentic, okay, that's when our entryway, our self-worth, it gets very, we get out of the rhythm of the union with creation, out of the rhythm of joy and authenticity, out of compassion, unconditional love, grace, reverence, such things. Because that's all about the inner child. So when we think of the childhood, which is that tear shaped, the seeding, okay, it surrounds the inner child. It's playful, it's silly, it's happy to discover new things, true intimacy with creation. So our childhood is intimacy with creation. Like when we are children, we're very open to discovery. We have a wonder. We have this sparkle in our eye. We're very curious. We're very fascinated. We're intrigued by everything around us. To the leaves, to the bees, to the sun, to the moon. That is our childhood. Okay, in its natural state, it's playful and silly. And even when we're adult, we have this, where we have this feeling of play that just comes out of nowhere. We feel really silly, or we just feel really intimate with creation. We feel very connected to people or to animals or to nature. That is that childhood inside of us. Okay, and that childhood is the compost soil, the fertile soil, the nourishing soil that helps the inner child to grow from its essence rather than its distortion. So that's basically we could say that foundation, that essence. We want to grow from our joy, from our authenticity. That's the seed. We grow, we sprout, and we bloom from. Okay? So down here below, I'm just going to mention that's very much like roots. We can see the soles of the feet. The soles of the feet that connect us to the ground is very much like rooting. We're very rooting into the earth. So we see this tear-shaped, okay, it's as though it's coming downward. It's an integration, it's grounding. So that's very much our essence. We are very low in the ground, meaning we are very connected to Mother Earth. So through that connection, we are bringing in oxygen. I thought that was interesting. We're bringing in oxygen through the entryway, okay? That uninflicted innocence that a man and woman both have, okay? So here we see this kind of bowl shape as though it's holding something. It's like it's holding something. That is the womb, okay? So we talked about the entryway. Now we're moving up into the womb, okay? The womb, and if you're a male, the womb for you is, again, we all have that second chakra. We all have that point of creativity. It's just for woman, it's emphasized, okay, because of the womb that woman has and man does not. But man still has that creative power, okay? So the womb, it is our fuel, okay? Fuel. We need fuel. When we talk about the word removal and elimination, It represents the warrior, stronghold, and determination. And it's very much like the furnace. I got that word when I channeled about that. So we think of removal and elimination. We're thinking of burning away anything that is getting us out of our rhythmic potential. So sometimes we have I like to say emotional constipation or intellectual constipation or physical constipation, where we're holding on to these energies and what they're doing is just weighing us down. Okay, but like a seed, it's levitation. We are wanting to sprout, we're wanting to bloom, we're wanting to reach towards the sunlight. But in order for us to really bloom and sprout and develop ourselves upward, we could say, is rising our energy from the soil towards the sunlight. Well, elimination and removal is about burning through anything that creates like a blockage or constipation, like it's a weight. Okay, and the weight that moves through us, it's not quite moving through us properly, it's not quite circulating, it becomes like debris even in our bloodstream, debris even in our organs, debris even in our auric field, in our thinking. And that debris, it's like it kind of creates this dam where the energy can't quite move through. So we want all of our energy to be in a moving through and through. Everything is moving through quite rhythmically. There's no barricades that are pushing against the natural flow. So that's like the burn, the fuel, the furnace. It like just burns through, and so that we can we can remain our essence. Okay, because in life, as we tend to grow, we're very vulnerable in our womb. For a lot of women, when we are menstruating, we're very vulnerable. Okay, so this represents it's like the furnace, it's like the fuel, it's like it burns through anything that's wanting to attach to our innocence, is wanting to penetrate or inflict that essence of ourselves, maybe wanting to like that pressure of the weight, or just blockages or distortions that could potentially kind of weigh us down from growing towards the sunlight, if we're using the analogy of a plant. So then we get into the sun. The sun, we see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a sun. And the sun has sun rays, and we'll get into the rays. So the sun, we could see it as our organs. So we went from reproductive, it's like our furnace. For women, you definitely, when you're on your period, it's like heat, so much heat. And it's just burning through you. It's burning through all of the nonsense, the stuff that is not true for you. Burning through it all of the entrapment, all of the enclosedness, burning through it. And then when we get to the organs, that is our energy source, our source of energy, just like the sunlight. And it's also our vitality, our glow. For example, when our organs are very, very healthy, very happy and holy, we tend to have an inner glow. So we think of people who have good skin, they're radiant, or they have this glow around their face, their organs are very healthy. So we think of radiance, we think of glow as just like a skincare, or you put some sort of face mask on you. But yeah, you can have clean skin that way, but the glow is like this glow, even in the eyes. The eyes are connected to the organs, the cheeks are connected to the organs, okay? And that is directly has to do with the vitality of the organs. So when our organs are very vital, very healthy, happy, and holy, that's our radiance. That's our magnetism. So we talk about, you have very alluring eyes. You have very captivating cheeks. You have this radiance to you that is just, I'm just drawn into you, just your beauty. That's the organs. So when you're looking and you find somebody who's just, they're beautiful, but in a very natural way, very almost untouched way, okay, that's because their organs are so youthful. So organs need to be youthful, and that's our energy source, youth of the organs. When there's youth of the organs, there is a nice fluidity when it comes to the total body and the total function of the body. Okay. So that's our energy source, and we have kind of like this furnace. It's almost like this fuel. It's like burning away all of the excess, burning it away, like the constipation, emotional constipation, mental constipation, psychological constipation, physiological constipation. Okay, so that you can get into an energy source, which is your renewable energy source that is very consistent. Like your organs, they're very consistent. They function and they don't need to be told to function. They're very consistent. That's your energy source. Okay. So then when we move up, we move to the white flame of your heart chakra. So I try to draw the white flame. It wasn't the best of my ability. So at the bottom, we see this larger portion, and that represents the diaphragm, and it's considered the basement where mysteries are uncovered. It needs to be tidy, spacious, deep cleanse prevents stagnation. So our stagnation very much has to do with the diaphragm. Okay, spacious. When you are inhaling a deep breath, exhaling long, your diaphragm is experiencing this spaciousness, and it's tidying any stagnation that's held within the basement, which is your diaphragm. So the basement is where we have sticky energy, sticky, negative, or old energies. Okay, it's like those little sticky pockets in the diaphragm. So the breath, okay, we can say the diaphragm expands and contracts, we see that. When it comes to also the lung area, we could say the rib cage area as well, moving upward. That is the place in which we discover things that we are holding on to. It could be patterns, it could be conditioning that is setting our construct. So we all have constructs, and the diaphragm is the way for us to reconstruct ourselves. So when we are working with the diaphragm, also when we're working with overall the breath, the capacity of the breath, okay, the capacity of the breath, we're working on reconstructing ourselves, which we always need to reconstruct ourselves, because in the basement of our lives, sometimes we have stuff that's been there for decades. Like if you go into anybody's basement, you'll find that it's in the same stuff, it's been in the same corner for decades. And that is not good for the overall, we could say the breath represents the airiness, the wind, which circulates. It's a way for us to quickly circulate or distribute our spiritual energy, or the glow. We could say the rays. The rays is very much the glow. So the sun is like the source of energy, and that radiance is just the release of it. Okay, the release of it. While the diaphragm or the lung capacity, the breath capacity, is very much what distributes it. It's the wind. It's the winds that moves things that need to be moved out for new things to move in. So we can't just have things move in and have nothing move out, because that's not how we could say it works. So this creates a wind. It's basically, it's like we're kind of making our basement spacious, tidying up things, rearranging things, reorganizing things, reconstructing things, so that we can invite newer, fresher things. And that's when we get into the heart. The heart represents inviting new potential, what is fresh. What is fresh for the basement. In order for us to invite what is fresh, we have to tidy things out, and we have to get rid or eliminate through the womb, like the furnace, like put it in the furnace, remove it, eliminate it. You don't need it, you don't want it, it's just, it doesn't serve a purpose anymore, it's out of date, it's hand-me-down, it's old, get rid of it. That's that womb area, like that furnace when you're on your period. It's a great opportunity when you're on your period to really consciously put some things in that wounds that you want to just blaze away. That it's just the pattern, the condition, the construct, it's just not working for you. It's not giving you freshness. It's not giving you new potential. Okay, but same, or just stagnation. So the heart is a potential, and that's our expansion. Our expansion we talk about is at the heart. Okay, so that is our window into our health. So we talk about the basement. This is the window that invites in new potential. It invites in this fresh breeze into the diaphragm, into the lung capacity that helps us to see the basement, that helps us to see the mysteries in the basement and what is hiding in the sticky corners that has been there for decades, that is not working, and it just needs to go. Or what pictures do you have of your mommy or your grandparents that it doesn't really invite anything fresh into your basement? It's just kind of getting blah and getting kind of boring and just kind of weighing you down. We never want a basement that weighs us down in our gut. We want a basement that is rising and it's like moving upward. It's inviting this elevation, this rise to the house, this rise to the house. Okay, and that's the flexibility of the diaphragm, the lung capacity. It's being exercised, it's being massaged, and when we're being massaged, all of the sticky patches of negativity or old energy, we're basically massaging it out, like tension. You're massaging those knots or those things out, and basically it's like releasing it, like we talk about the furnace or the fireplace, releasing it out of the heart, the window, the open window, releasing it out of the heart. So the basement also can be where we store the tightness, the anger, the uptightness, the stiffness, the rigidness, you're in this condition and you're just set in it. You're not very flexible, adaptable, changeable. You're just like kind of stiff, like a stick. That the flexibility of the lung capacity, the diaphragm, you kind of massage out these tensions, these constructs, these conditions. It loosens, and like the furnace as well as like the chimney, it moves out of the window, out of the window. So the heart is our venting. So when we think of venting, all of the anger, all of the inner rage, the self-sabotage, the childhood issues, okay, the childhood neglect, all of that, we vent it through the heart. So the heart is this warmth. Okay, it's this heat, it's this release of heat. Okay, so we talk about the furnace, we talk about we're creating heat, we talk about the energy, or the energy source, okay, which is that vitality. And then we talk about the venting. So there's a way for us to we create heat, we need to like release it. And that's that heart chamber in the front and the back. Okay, we are venting. We're venting out the anger. And that creates, the heart also has to represent, it represents the fulfillment. Okay, the fulfillment. So we talk about the inner child being playful, or being joy, authenticity, the childhood representing playfulness, silly. That has to do with the entryway to the vagina, as well as entering into the vagina if you're a woman. We talk about the womb representing the determination, the warrior. We talk about the organs. Okay, it's the organs very much just like collaboration. Okay, the organs are collaborating with each other. We talk about like synergy. It's like the organs. It's like the energy source, your synergy. Your energy source is in sync with the cosmic energy source. We call it synergy. We call it collaboration, being in sync. Your energy source is with Mother Earth. Your organs are connected to Mother Earth. Okay, and they're also connected to this cosmic energy, synergy. It's like a community, okay, collaboration. So when we get into like the diaphragm, like I mentioned, it's the mysteries. It's a place for us to discover, okay, discover what is actually going on within us, and we're stiff and we're uptight, and why is that? What's in our basement that we're not seeing? And then the venting is like, whoo, the heat. Just let it all go out the window. Just let it all, air it out. Just, get air it out. Some of that held in stuff that we've held on to. And that's our fulfillment. The heart is our fulfillment, because when we are venting out all of this held in anger and rage and all of this stuff, we experience the heart expansion. The heart expansion is our connection to that inner child. Okay. So when we, for example, a lot of people, when our heart is very blocked or our heart is very closed, what happens is those people, they don't know how to clear out the anger. So they may do a lot of hypnosis, but it's not airing out. They're not venting it out. Okay. The heart expansion, the window, it's like the larger the window is, the more wind can come in and bring freshness. But when it's closed, the window's closed and we can't see our potential. It's like the bigger the window, the more you see outside, the more potential you see. But when the window's closed, you don't see much potential. And all you see is the basement of all of the stuff that's been in there for decades in the same exact position, in the same exact corner. That's not what we want. The bigger the window, the more light comes into our diaphragm, the more we see outside. We see this vastness of just a garden of trees and the mountain, the river, we see it. Okay. And the more that light we can invite into our basement and to see what is going on that we don't know, what is going on, like that we need to uncover. Okay. What we need to tidy and bring spaciousness. So then we move to the throat. So we talk about this flame. It's like a white flame. We talk about the basement to the white flame. We talk about the center of the white flame. We talk about the top of the white flame. So the basement, we could imagine it as, when we see the flame, we see it as the gas stove blue. Okay, that's like the subconscious. The basement, the subconscious, the diaphragm. It's like the lung capacity, working on the subconscious, working on kind of venting, pulling it up from the furnace, from the childhood where maybe it's locked in. Okay, it's locked in, pulling it up, like the mula bandha, pulling it up, pulling it into the diaphragm, like pulling it up. Diaphragm's elevated, diaphragm's not dropped, it's elevated, and you're pushing all of that, venting it out of the heart. But the heart window needs to be very wide for you to get all of that junk out, all of that excess kind of debris, like smoke you've held on to. So we burn the stuff, but we need to let the smoke out. Or what happens, it just stays in us. Okay? So that's very much like the heart. And when you kind of get out the smoke or the cloud of your childhood out of your body, you can see the window. It's clear. Okay, that's clear. Your potential, you can see in the field. Wow, I have potential, actually. I'm not bound to this basement of my tight, everything's in the same place for decades, and it's not even really arranged the way I want it to be. It doesn't really construct me to be what I want to be, which is fresh potential. So then we move into the throat. So we see the heart representing like the red. You see the red, the oranges, and then we get into like the yellow. That's the light. The throat is the light. It is the nourishment, language of health. So heart represents the health. The bigger the window, the more health we know, and the more fulfillment we know. It's like health and fulfillment are very much a team. Health and fulfillment are a team. So it's like the more we bend out of our house, is kind of the more fresh we feel and the more health we have within our organs. Okay. The more health, because think of the heart, it also is the circulation. So if we have a lot of stuff in our heart and we're not circulating properly, it's not open channel. It's very like kind of tight or small or kind of closed off, wanky. Then the energy source, the vitality wants to circulate, it wants to move, it wants to be playful. Okay, it wants to socialize with every cell in our body, with every fiber, with every muscle, with every tissue, but the heart is what moves it. It's like the window. When it's open, everything can be seen, everything can move, everything can interact with each other. But when it's closed, it's kind of like energy trying to move through a really tiny tube, and it's not very fulfilling. So the heart is the language of health. That's where we nourish ourselves. We talk about this throat. It's the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland has to do a lot with our language of health. When our thyroid gland is very much like inflamed or kind of blocked or cloaked, which a lot of people have, it's like almost like they have a throat around their hand around their throat and they don't even know it. Basically, that decides the language of our health. Okay. So the language of our health, again, it correlates with the womb. There's a correlation between the thyroid, we could say, or the throat energy, as well as the womb. So the womb, again, has to do with how much we blazing away, that we're eliminating, removing, that just is not really like toxins, like waste, constipation, all that kind of stuff. Emotional constipation, mental, physiological. And then the throat is the light that shines through. Okay, it's the light. So we think of the heart as the light that shines through, but it's very much the open window, the potential. The throat is what's receiving. It's like receiving the language of health, receiving the nourishment from the light outside the window. Okay. It's almost like we think of the throat as vibrato as where it's moving out, but there's a lot of vibrato that's we create here and it goes to every part of our body. So if our language is very negative because we have some childhood stuff that we need to put into the furnace and blaze away, but we haven't, basically our language is going to reflect that. Our language may be quite negative, maybe quite self-sabotage. We could be very destructive, or we could be very defensive or paranoia. Our language is not just speaking, it's also the language, we could say, the inner language. Okay. When we create these thoughts or these languages, the inner dialogue we have, it has a vibration. And a lot of times that vibration is here. Okay, that vibration. So we think of the throat as like the center where vibration is created, expanding at the heart, and then brought everywhere into the body. Okay. So then we get into the head. We say that the head. So we see this eye at the top. So we see this represents evolution. It represents horizon, divine touch on the earth. So when we see the horizon, we see the sun, and it's almost as though it's touching the earth. We know it's not really touching the earth, but it appears that it's touching the earth. That is very much, we could say, this divinity aspect of ourself is here right now with us. So it's not the sun, when we see it full in the sky, it looks something very far. But when it's in the horizon, it's here with us right now. It's almost like we can touch it. That's when we talk about the veil being thin. We talk about timelessness, deathlessness. The eye, vast and deep, universal, interdimensional. That is very much the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and we see the brain. So the pineal gland is very much represented by this, we say, what is it, the iris? And then we have the outer, which is the pituitary gland, and then we have the brain, okay, the brain, and that represents blessings bestowed. Okay, so that horizon, that evolution is blessings bestowed to us. So when we are given the horizon where we can experience the divine is right here with us, that's what gives us the full realization of ourself. So we have the heart is potential, but then the evolution is the blessings bestowed. When we touch the divine, we bring the divine into our life. We know the divine, and that's what gives us blessing. It's just like it's a blessing of our life. Like when we're bowing, we're pressing our frontal lobe onto the ground as though we are blessing ourselves. We're blessing ourselves. We're touching the ground in which the horizon has touched the ground. right in front of the horizon and the sunset, a sunrise and the sunset, is that we're blessing ourselves. We're wanting bring in the horizon, bring in the divine to bless ourselves and to help us. Like evolution is like a service. It's like a progress. It's like a maturity. It's like a mastery. And that mastery comes from, we bloom from the seed all the way up into, we could say, the full realization of ourself, or like the rose, because it's full rose. And that is the blessing, to come into the fullness of your authentic seed. So a rose has authentic seed, and when it blooms and becomes the rose, that is its blessing given to itself, to be its authentic self from the seed all the way into its immense beauty. Okay? Because it has traveled through the environments, we can say even toxicity, such as trash in the soil that creates, toxins that the plant has to deal with. And then it endured through the womb. We can say it endured harsh environments, harsh, it could be chemicals. It endured through its determination, through its stronghold, and the potential of itself. It reached the evolution of itself, the mastery of itself. So then we talk about the crown chakra, which is above, above head, and that represents about the dispersing. We're dispersing the spiritual energy into the arc line, or the arc line into the shield, the auric shield. So our spiritual energy, a lot of times from the potential of the heart, moving into the evolution of the pineal gland, pituitary gland, as well as the brain. Okay. The horizon, invited into our thoughts, which is horizon is touch of the divine. It's like you being in awe, like looking at a sunset or sunrise, you're in awe. Your thoughts are in awe at its divinity. And that creates a spiritual energy. That heat is like that venting of the heart and moves into spiritual energy. It moves into a language of health, a language of like farewell or goodbye to what no longer serves me, and thank you, hello. I'm grateful for what is now moving into me. That creates a spiritual energy, and it basically disperses throughout the crown chakra, moves out. So if you feel heat at the top of the head, there's a lot of spiritual energy that's being dispersed into the aura, creating a shield. That's your shield. So the more that you're in like an authentic rhythm with yourself when it comes to like everything I've mentioned, the more spiritual energy you're cultivating. And a lot of that spiritual energy is cultivated at how big the window of your heart is. And the shield is what protects your heart. So we don't need to like close our window and just live in the dark of our basement and all the stiffness and the uptightness. No. Okay. We need to open that window, create that spiritual energy, okay, from the language of health, the light. When we think of light, we think of compassion, we think of divinity, and then disperse that into the aura, and that shield is what protects us. We're thinking our heart has to protect us. The shield of our auric field protects us from what we call like people getting into us and, hurting us, or it's the shield of the aura and how consolidated and how impenetrable, like the ozone layer. We don't want holes or toxins get in. It has to be very consolidated. So it's very much what I saw. And then moving into the integration, the aura integrating into this earth, because the aura is connected to the earth, like roots to a tree. Expansion, roots, aura deeper into earth. So the more spiritual energy we're creating at the heart, meaning more potential we're inviting in, we're reconstructing ourselves constantly, more refreshed we are, more access we have to just new potential, newfound potential, uncover mysteries that lead to potential. The more expanded we are, the more language, we could say language of health we have, instead of language of like, vibration that destroys us and, chokes us. And, the more we can experience evolution, we can experience horizon within our thoughts. We talk about being on a vision quest. Blessings are bestowed from a vision quest. And then that expansion creates what we call rooting the aura, thick roots into Mother Earth. Thick roots. It's like the thicker, the more you can pull up, the more you can pull in, the more spiritual energy you can create, the more you can distribute or disperse. And then we talk about the dispersing of our seeds. Like we talk, all plants kind of disperse seeds somehow. And that is the joy and authenticity of our essence, the entryway to our vagina, or your man has the entryway as well. It's prevailing over, you could say, this earth. Okay. It leaving a legacy. Okay. And that's through the aura. The aura is what leaves a legacy, or the arc line, the auric field leaves a legacy that's created from the essence. The inner child pulled up into childhood, pulled up into the womb, pulled up into the organs, pulled up into the diaphragm, lung capacity, heart, throat, evolution of it all dispersed into this more seeds that plant, that grow, that develop. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the left. So the right side represents, so your right leg represents standing regal, a dance, and passion. The left leg represents standing assured, a march, consistency. Okay. So I'm going to get into just through the 7. So we can say the 7 chakras. I'd just like to say the 7. So when we talk about the entryway to the vagina, we say fertilizing self with innocence and joy. Essence. The womb, awakening the ground for self to bloom. So we need a ground, like we need a container. We need like a kind of like a furnace to blaze away, the stuff we don't need. And then 3, nourishing the self for endurance. So that's the energy source, nourishing the self for endurance. Organs, vital, inner glow, very nourishing. We have endurance when our organs are working. When they're not, we can't keep up with anything. 4, opening the potential of self, which has to do with the heart. Oh, and it has to do with the diaphragm, the capacity of the lungs, opening the potential of self. Meaning you have a basement, you're opening a door to invite in light so that you can discover your basement and what is not working. The stuff that's been there for decades and that needs to go because it's creating stagnation or old energy constructs, conditions that are not up to date. 5, the heart, venting the self for ease. So when our heart is venting, it creates a spiritual heat, it creates a spiritual energy that makes the heart healthy and happy and fulfillment. And then 6 is the throat, expressing the self with ease. So when our heart has vented, created spiritual heat, when we communicate, we're not venting. But that's important. A lot of us, we communicate and we're venting. Because our heart is closed, the energy needs to get out, the anger, the rage, so it gets out through basically gripping onto our throat, controlling our language. Okay, meaning we talk down, we pulse it, we say things, the blah blah blah, chat 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 chat. Okay, expressing with ease. So when your heart is healthy, the window of potential is wide open. All that air can get out, the excess smoke of, the furnace smoke can get out. Then you can sigh with relief and communicate from a place of freshness rather than smoke. Okay? And then we get into flowering the intent for self to be as God intends, and that's the evolution. That's the pineal gland, pituitary gland. We're getting into the crown chakra. Okay, flowering the intent for self to be as God intends. So that's like the lotus flower at the head. Okay, and that's where intent is, and that's where we truly flower. Okay, and that's the potential of the heart that leads to the great, we say, the great halo of the head, where we are in perfect, we're perfectly in sync with the essence of the entryway to our vagina, our authentic and joyful self. We are completely in sync, we're completely in line to that, and we're not disjointed, we're not wanky, we're completely in line with that. That's what creates this flowering of the true intent of why we came here. And then the aura is the disperse of the spiritual energy. It is the sound current of our essence, our inner child, the entryway to the vagina, brought into its expansion at the heart, elimination of all the junk, and then the language of itself, and then the evolution of itself, meaning the flowering, becoming what it wants to become. A seed wants to become something. It wants to grow. It wants to develop. It wants to experience. It wants to learn. It wants to flower for the continuity of the seed to prevail, meaning seeds become more seeds. Okay? Potentials become new potentials. Essence becomes more experiences of the essence. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Yes. This is enough information for right now. Okay, so hopefully this helped you. Sat Nam.